Picture a scenario where America's industrial core roars back, assembly lines hum again, and millions of jobs return. A sweeping revival once promised. Yet the current landscape looks starkly different. For 8 straight months, the nation's manufacturing engine has not merely stalled, but contracted. Fresh data from the Institute for Supply Management shows its benchmark index sliding to 48.7%, a level that unmistakably reflects decline. This downturn stands in sharp contrast to the expectations tied to policies specifically designed to energize domestic production. The question now is, how did a blueprint for resurgence turn into an extended slump? A convergence of complications has overtaken the sector, a series of ripple effects where intended fixes generated fresh obstacles while global competitors adapted quickly. These results are not isolated metrics. They indicate growing strain across the entire industrial network. The lofty assurances behind these policies appear increasingly hollow. If the objective was recovery, why do conditions continue to deteriorate? A central culprit is a policy instrument meant to protect U.S. industry, but instead created widespread blowback: tariffs. The strategy was straightforward: raise costs on imported metals such as steel and aluminum to push companies toward domestic suppliers and shield American mills. But the trade-off was steep. For each facility producing steel, numerous others depend on it to manufacture vehicles, appliances, and construction materials. Their expenses surged almost overnight. One plant leader cited the escalating price of steel as a significant obstacle. A remedy tailored for one segment morphed into a severe burden for many others. On top of higher bills, businesses faced a larger problem: instability. How long would these trade barriers persist? What price pressures would follow? Such unpredictability chills capital spending. When the future is murky, expansion stops, and hiring with it. This financial strain only intensified. Beyond metal prices, the same ISM report shows the broader cost index remains elevated. Firms are paying more for energy, components, and essential inputs across the board. That leaves owners with 2 painful choices: raise prices and risk losing customers to cheaper global alternatives, or absorb the hit and watch margins disappear. Many have been forced into operating with shrinking or vanishing profitability. A mix of policy-driven expenses and persistent inflation has boxed manufacturers into an increasingly untenable position, constructing not a shield, but a barrier of new costs. All of this pressure is captured in one key gauge: the Purchasing Managers' Index. It functions as the central indicator of industrial health, revealing whether the sector is expanding or retreating. At 48.7%, the reading signals clear distress, but the deeper concern lies in its components. New orders have dropped sharply, a warning sign that demand is fading. That slowdown naturally pulls production lower, which is precisely what the data shows. Employment numbers are even more troubling, sinking to 46%. Fewer hires, more layoffs, and shrinking paychecks indicate that the contraction is touching every corner of the system, from incoming orders to assembly output to workforce levels. While the U.S. grapples with tariff fallout and rising costs, other nations are moving decisively. In a global marketplace, capital and supply lines behave like flowing water, drifting toward the most stable environment. Corporations are pursuing a shift often dubbed the Great Rewiring, restructuring operations by spreading production across multiple allied nations to avoid disruption. This trend isn't about choosing one country over another. It's about securing consistency. When one pathway is blocked by unpredictable trade barriers, companies carve out new ones. Emerging partnerships in Asia and Europe are forming networks that reduce reliance on traditional industrial centers. Meanwhile, an American sector mired in internal challenges risks being left out of the redesigned global framework. To grasp the broader picture, it's necessary to examine the rise of alternative production centers, not as adversaries, but as logical beneficiaries of shifting global dynamics. Nations such as Vietnam and India aren't seizing jobs through hostile intent. They're attracting a surge of worldwide investment, by delivering what companies value most today: predictable conditions, cost efficiencies, and expanding pools of trained labor. Vietnam has emerged as a key force in electronics assembly, while India is accelerating its output in everything from mobile devices to automobiles. This is growth happening quietly but decisively. These countries have positioned themselves as steady, capable partners. Their governments are reinforcing infrastructure and inviting global firms with consistent regulatory frameworks. For multinational corporations weighing their next manufacturing site, the calculation is becoming straightforward. Loyalty to traditional hubs matters less than securing operations against future disruptions, and rising economies are offering compelling propositions. Behind each economic metric sits a personal impact, and perhaps the most revealing figure in this report is the employment index at 46%. That number does more than hint at a slowdown. It confirms that across the industry, layoffs now surpass hiring. The shift has moved beyond paused recruitment into active reductions. These are not abstract indicators. They represent wages, rent payments, and household obligations. Comments within the survey reinforce the strain. One producer reported maintaining current staffing levels, a coded reference to halting new hires. Others noted reliance on attrition, gradually shrinking headcounts by declining to replace departing workers. For those caught in the 46% territory, lost jobs are becoming reality. This is the human toll of an 8-month downturn, placing the financial stability of countless families in jeopardy. A vivid example comes from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve District. Its business activity index stood at a robust plus 23.2 in September, signifying solid expansion. By October, it had plunged to minus 12.8. This wasn't a minor slip, it was a collapse. Such a dramatic swing indicates that something fundamental shifted. Major orders likely evaporated, and confidence dropped sharply. Factories that were busy one month saw demand vanish the next. For local economies, the effect is swift and punishing. Philadelphia's reversal serves as a warning that similar declines could unfold elsewhere if cost pressures and uncertainty continue unchecked. In global trade, actions rarely occur without consequences. The U.S. tariff strategy did not unfold in isolation. Other nations responded with targeted levies aimed at politically sensitive American exports, especially agricultural products from rural regions. The result was a two-sided hit. Domestic manufacturers faced higher input costs, while farmers and exporters encountered new barriers abroad. This back and forth alters the balance of influence. Where the United States once held steady leverage in international commerce, retaliation showed that foreign partners are prepared to counter U.S. decisions with precision. It narrows Washington's negotiating advantage and illustrates how unilateral policies can carry steep costs, particularly when alliances are crucial. Still, the U.S. is not standing idle. A sweeping response centered on advanced technology is already in motion, backed by billions in federal funding. Programs such as the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act are focused not on reviving legacy manufacturing, but on establishing leadership in emerging sectors: semiconductors, electric vehicles, and battery systems. This marks a strategic pivot toward industries expected to define the future. Another component involves realigning supply chains with dependable partners, including Mexico and India, in an effort to enhance security while controlling expenses. The broader objective is to build a stronger, more adaptive industrial foundation. But the central question remains unresolved. Can these enormous investments overcome the dual pressures of rising costs, intensifying international competition, and persistent volatility? The outcome hinges on whether American innovation can outpace the challenges created along the way.